My dear students and viewers, I am Puranjay Biswas, Professor and Chairman, Department of English, Dhaka College. I welcome you to my today's lecture. My today's topic is epic from Aristotle's Poetics. In the beginning, let me discuss epic. Epic is called the earliest form of poetry. It is also called the earliest form of entertainment. At first, let me discuss the origin of the word epic. Now look at the board. The word epic has derived from a Greek adjective, epikos. And the word epikos means poetic story. In fact, the word epikos has come from another word which is epos. Epos means word or speech or song. In fact, epic is a literary genre that grew in the ancient Greece. Now, what is an epic? Let me give the definition. Epic is a long narrative heroic poem which deals with a serious and sublime subject matter involving a superhuman hero presented in a grand style and lofty manner. And from this definition, we get some fundamental aspects of epic. And what are the main elements of an epic? First of all, epic is a long narrative poem. Secondly, it deals with a serious theme of valor and superhuman heroes. Epic reflects a character who is superhuman in courage, in valor, in heroism. Right? Then another important element is ode. In an epic, we find a ode. For example, in the Iliad, we find the Trojan ode. Then another important element of epic is adventurous journey. There is perilous journey in epic, and this is a fundamental element. Then another aspect of epic is Deus ex machina. By this, we mean the treatment of supernatural elements, supernatural power, divine characters like gods, goddesses, and so on. Then another vital element of epic is invocation to muses. Now, what does invocation mean? Invocation means a prayer or a request to muses. And who are the muses? Muses are the 9 daughters of Zeus. A poet, at the beginning of his epic, prays to muses for assistance, so that he can write this gigantic task of epic, and this is called invocation. Another important element is the use of epic similes. In an epic, we find numerous epic similes or Homeric similes. Homeric simile or epic simile means extended, elaborate simile, and this is very important part of language used in epic. Then dignified diction or language. In an epic, dignified language is used, and this is also part of epic. Then there is always a noble mission, moral and didactic purpose that the poet relates in his epic. My students, what is the function and purpose of epic? In an epic, the poet reflects the historical, traditional background of a race, of a community. And through the narration of epic, we come to know the glorious age, the historical past, about the heroic deeds of kings and warriors of the remote past. And what is the purpose of an epic? The purpose of an epic is to tell us about this great achievement of a great hero with a view to creating spirit, enthusiasm among the readers, so that the readers become heroic, courageous, energetic, like the epic heroes. According to J.T. Dept, an epic is an encyclopedia of the manners, customs, and values that bind a whole civilization together. And this is the most important function of epic. There are two kinds of epic. Number one, the primary epic or primitive epic. It is also called folk epic. And this type of epic is mainly oral in origin, and it comes from generation to generation through oral representation. For example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Iliad and the Odyssey, all these belong to this category, that is primary epic. And the second category is called the secondary epic or literary epic or art epic. This type of epic is highly formal, following some fundamental rules and forms. And this type of epic is Milton's Paradise Lost, Virgil's Aeneid. Now, let me have a glimpse at the world-famous epics that we find in different ages. My dear students, I have described various elements of epic and the classification of epic. Now, we can see the world-famous epics or the heroic poetry. And this is the period, and here I have mentioned the world-famous epics. First of all, the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the oldest epic in world literature, and this is about Mesopotamia, and this is about an Assyrian king named Gilgamesh. He was half god and half man. He was very much proud and arrogant, having supernatural power and powers. And this is oral and traditional. Now, another important example of epic is the Iliad and the Odyssey of Homer in Greek literature. The earliest epic is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which appeared in 2000 BCE, and Homer's Iliad and Odyssey in 800 BCE. Then another important epic in Sanskrit language is the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and this is written on Indian mythology. Then comes the Aeneid, written by Virgil, a famous Italian poet, and the Aeneid is written on Greek myth. As Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey about Greek mythology, the Aeneid is also written on the Greek mythology. Now, Beowulf, this appeared in the 16th AD and written in Old English language. Another important epic is the Metamorphoses, written by Ovid, a Roman epic poet, and this appeared in 8th AD. I shall also want to mention Shahnameh, written by Persian poet Firdaus, and this is their national history. In 11th AD, there appeared another epic, Arabic epic, named Takribat Bani Hilal. It is also called Al-Sirat al-Hilaliya. This is an oral Arabic epic regarding the journey of the Bedouin tribe from Arabia to Tunisia and Algeria via Egypt. This epic is also performed at present in Egypt. Now, the Song of Ronald, which appeared in 11th. The Song of Ronald is a medieval French epic. There is another important epic that appeared in 16th AD, and that is Orlando Furioso, written by Ariosto, an Italian epic poet. Then the Divine Commedia, which was written during the 14th century by Dante. And you know that Dante is a famous Italian poet. Then the Fairy Queen, and the Fairy Queen is written by Edmund Spenser during the 16th century. Then comes The Paradise Lost, written by Milton during the 17th century. And this is very important, and you have, syllabus also. The Paradise Lost is written to justify the ways of God to man. Another Latin poet, Lucan, who wrote Pharsalia, and Pharsalia is written on the national history of Italy regarding the civil war that took place between Julius Caesar and the Senate leader Pompey the Great. At last, I have mentioned a latest epic that has appeared in 2020, and its name is The Lay of Mouse Fate, written by an American poet named Samuel Jacob Stephens. My dear students, these are the great epic achievements so far we have found in different languages. My dear students and viewers, in my previous class, I discussed tragedy, its definition, its constituents, its function, its nature. Now, I want to tell you about the contrast between epic and tragedy. You know that tragedy is a dramatic art which has sad and unhappy ending. I also discussed Aristotle's definition of tragedy, and today I have also mentioned the definition of epic. Now let us see a picture of contrast between epic and tragedy. Please look at the board. Epic is unlimited in length, whereas tragedy has a considerable length. Secondly, epic is an art of narration, while tragedy is an art of spectacle. That is, the manner of epic is narration. It is narrated by the poet. On the contrary, tragedy is a matter of stage performance, stage show, or spectacle. Thirdly, in an epic, there are more than one plot. Side by side of a main plot, we can also find some plots in an epic. But a tragedy must have only one plot. There must not be subplots, according to Aristotle. Another important point of contrast is that in epic, only one meter is used, that is hexameter. And what is hexameter? Hexameter is a metrical line consisting of 6 feet. But in a tragedy, variety of meters may be used. Then, in an epic, there is no strict maintenance of dramatic unities. there is no question of the unity of place and time. Only one unity is followed, that is the unity of action. On the contrary, in classical tragedy, we find the observance of three unities: the unity of time, unity of place, and unity of action. Another important point of difference is that in an epic, there are many characters. We come across numerous characters in epic, whereas in tragedy, we find few characters. Again, in an epic, there may have many themes and colorful events. On the contrary, in a tragedy, we find a single theme. That is, in an epic, there is a vast land-large setting, vast geographical area, and long period. All these are reflected in epic, but a single theme is related to tragedy. Now, the hero in an epic is superhuman, having Herculean physical strength, mental vigor, courage, valor, dauntlessness. On the other hand, the hero or protagonist in a tragedy is a better man than the average. He is not that type of superhuman figure as you find in epic. There is glorification of war, valor and heroism in an epic. On the other hand, we find arousing pity and fear and creating cathartic effect in tragedy. That is, the function of epic is to tell us about the heroic achievement and deeds of superhuman hero. But the function of a tragedy is to arouse the emotions of pity and fear, bringing about a cathartic effect in the mind of the audience. In fact, an epic doesn't contain all the elements of tragedy, but a tragedy contains all the elements that an epic contains. Last of all, according to Aristotle, tragedy is superior to epic as an art in many respects. So, epic is inferior to tragedy, and tragedy is superior to epic as art form. My dear students, all these are the points of difference between epic and tragedy. For example, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Paradise Lost, all these are the examples of epic, whereas Oedipus Rex, Agamemnon, Medea, Phaedra, all these are the examples of tragedy. Though we find some important points of difference between a tragedy and an epic, there are also some similarities. And what are those? The objects of imitation, the media of imitation are same in epic and tragedy. They mainly differ in the manner of imitation. That is, the epic is an art of narration, but tragedy is an art of performance, action on stage or display. From our discussion, we have come to know tragedy and epic, their similarity and dissimilarity. My dear students, I know that we are passing a critical moment in our life. We are in great worries and tension, but we have to overcome all these obstacles of life heroically, consciously. Thank you. See you next.